So basically, first of all, the difference in this show is we have a headline that's not game related. Mike Craven have some bad news. We got to talk about the playoff. Unfortunately, or fortunately, TCU is actually unbeaten right now. And so, therefore, we had to actually pay attention Tuesday night to ESPN and what the college football playoff had to announce. And to the surprise of many, not me, because I know that this is a made-up poll made up by people that have no interest in putting the best teams in there as far as the ones that make them money. TCU was placed 7th. Of course, they were leapfrogged by Alabama, who has a loss. And I'm trying to think if those. No, that was really only the egregious one.
I mean, they have the same resume as Clemson.
Right.
Clemson's
That's true.
4.
Yeah, good point.
My favorite game to play is like if Texas had TCU's resume.
Yeah.
Where would they rank?
Much higher.
Oh, they'd be 4.
They'd be in
I
there.
agree with you, 4.
Yeah.
They'd be in there.
And if TCU had Texas's resume,
they wouldn't be ranked.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
And so, like, this is an invitational.
Yeah.
And that's why I roll my eyes when we talk about this. We're not frustrated because we have to talk about TCU being really good.
No, yeah,
and
exactly,
possibly,
no.
Competing for a national championship. It's because this is fake and make-believe, and maybe when it gets to 12, it gets a little bit better, but it's hard to take seriously because I'm not sure they do either.
Right. No, I completely agree. Texas, of course, got ranked 24. As you see, if you're watching us on live stream, you can see the graphic that Mallory just put up. But yeah, so TCU 7, Texas 24. Those are the only Texas teams ranked. Of course, Oklahoma State, if you want to get into the Big 12, Oklahoma State at 18, Kansas State at 13. Of course, it's November, right? So this could look very, very different, right? I guess you can almost presume that barring Tennessee and basically put it this way, if Tennessee and Georgia end with 1 loss each in the year, they're probably both in, right?
Yeah.
Ohio State probably, we'll figure out which between them and Michigan are probably going to get in.
Yep.
Clemson, barring anything, they might win the ACC and they might get in, who knows? And so it does feel like that TCU needs some help there because it doesn't feel like their resume or their soon-to-be resume at the end of the year is going to be enough to push them in, which, again, raises the ultimate question of, well, what's the playoff good for if you get the job done and 2 teams that are still have 1 loss potentially still get in ahead of you? It's kind of why I liked last season so much. Because I didn't like last season, and I'm not saying that I liked it because none of the teams were good enough to make that conversation, but they just robbed us of that conversation, right? None of the teams had the resume to where we had to pay attention on Tuesday nights to be, well, does Condoleezza Rice like TCU? I didn't have to sit there and wonder if the guys sitting in a room liked a certain resume over another. I could just say, you know what? I don't have to pay attention to that because I can just pay attention to when they go to the Cotton Bowl or some other New Year's Six bowl.
I hate bad faith arguments.
Yeah.
And out of one side of their mouth, they'll talk about TCU is not this complete team who has fallen behind some opponents, and then you point out that Clemson's done the same thing, and they're like, well, no, we're looking at this. It just doesn't. It never adds up.
Or like Bama, who's hasn't looked like Bama this year, right? They probably,
but they're still up there.
I was about to say, I get it. Like it's a brand name, right? They lost it.
That's what it is. That's literally all it is their brand names.
I mean,
just like you just mentioned with TCU and Texas, if they were to switch, I mean, Texas would be in the
and
top
I'd
4.
be all for it if they just said it. Like, hey, we're in the business of making money.
Yeah.
We're going to, within reason, get the 4 best teams that also make us a boatload of money.
Yes.
If they would just come out and say that, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, at least we know what it is.
Right.
But like this whole idea of fairness and parity it's just make believe. The one last thing I will say, if TCU wins out, they're in.
Yeah.
If TCU goes undefeated and wins the Big 12, they're in because the Pac-12 has a 1-loss team. That Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama triumphant has to play all of each other. Whoever wins Georgia, Tennessee this week will eventually play Bama in the SEC championship, and that will be figured out. Michigan, Ohio State play.
Yeah.
And so I do think if TCU runs the table, they're in. The problem for TCU is they have to run the table.
They have to.
They lose one game, they're completely out of it.
Exactly. I think the other thing was along that lines, I'm trying to think, there's no precedent of an unbeaten Power 5 team getting left out. Is there?
No.
So I don't know if they want to establish, they definitely don't want to have that conversation, right? Because it's easy to do that to, I know Cincinnati got in last year, but it's easy to do that to a Cincinnati. Right. It's not easy to do that to a team like TCU who basically runs the table and wipes the floor with the Oklahomas and Texas of the world and then all of a sudden gets left out.
It would require an undefeated Pac-12 champion.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because
Right,
then
exactly.
then that would change the math a little bit of like which one are we leaving out? Because the SEC is always going to get one, maybe two.
Maybe two, yeah.
Clemson, if they're undefeated, Big Ten champion, that leaves one spot. So if Big 12 and if USC was also undefeated, TCU would be in trouble.
And there's not an undefeated Pac-12 team,
No,
is there?
no.
Yeah,
USC,
they all at least
Utah's
have
already
one.
lost
And
this
Oregon's
one.
got
Oregon
a
lost
loss.
one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So